Welcome to the final of the 2010 competition. You will have 20 minutes to do your presentation, followed by 10 minutes Q&A session to the judges. But before we start, I would like to ask the judges to introduce themselves.
Yes, Michael Rasmussen, Montreal's lecturer here in marketing, supply chain management, international business.
David Gillingham, president of NIBS, professor of marketing, and long-time associate with everything to do with NIBS.
Søren Holmesen, associate professor of international marketing at the University of Southern Denmark, and also some marketing.
Patrick Schoenmaker, International Affairs, Zurich University, the Netherlands.
Peter Peterson, I'm the head of the course department at IBC, long experience in strategic marketing.
I'm Colin Napper from London South Bank University, and I specialise in cross-cultural management issues and comparative and relevant systems.
You now have 20 minutes to do your presentation. I will call out in 10, 5, 3, 1 minutes left. So if the team is ready, you may begin.
Ladies and gentlemen of the board, thank you for this opportunity to present to you today. My name is Andrew Willis. With me today are Stefan Lemieux, Ellie Barreau, and Vicky Schaefer. We are the Bishop Consulting Group. This is the structure of our presentation today. We'll begin with the identification of our key strategic issue, followed by an analysis, alternatives identified, a recommendation, the implementation of our chosen strategy, and lastly, identification of risks and mitigation strategies. How should New Balance manage corporate social responsibility to create a sustainable competitive advantage while benchmarking ethical global leadership? We've identified these key objectives that we will address later in the presentation. As you will see in a few moments, following an analysis and assessment of various alternatives, we suggest that New Balance should institutionalize corporate social responsibility measures to consistently benchmark conscious business practices while securing a sustainable competitive advantage. I will now pass it on to Elliot to begin our analysis.
So let us take a look at the footwear industry with a specific focus on CSR. So lots of opportunities out there. First of all, the increasing number of ethical consumers, as well as a rising number of advocacy for human rights, as well as sweatshops that applies to your industry. The increasing demand for transparency. CSR, according to surveys by the Boston Consulting Group, has been recognized as the second most important driver of reputation for a company. There are many opportunities to partner with NGOs, governments, and other companies doing the same thing as well. On the threat side of things, because there are threats out there, transparency is also a threat given that you're a private company and as of now you do not publish CSR reports. Some people have mentioned that CSR does not entangle tangible results, so that's a threat of it, as well as the domestic manufacturing costs, especially important for you given that you produce in the United States. So moving on, we have identified a few key trends in the industry from which we can draw the following key success factors for the industry. First of all, like I mentioned, CSR being recognized as the second most important driver of reputation for a company. That leads into brands. A brand is very important for a company in this business. So is communication. We'll touch upon that a bit later on, but CSR is only as good as it is communicated out there. Furthermore, we have most competitors outsourcing to cheaper labor countries, so efficiency is very important. We have more informed customers, so raw material sourcing, where the raw materials come from, whether you communicate or not, very important. As well as global marketing and distribution, so distribution is important. So we have outlined the following key success factors. Important to keep in mind, we'll come back to this later. So, for your company, brand, it's a recognized brand. However, CSR is not communicated properly, so we've assessed this as a medium. You aren't to your full potential in terms of brand. Communication is very weak. This is what we would like to tackle today. However, you are quality, efficient, and you have very good capabilities in terms of raw material sourcing as a company. So moving on to Stefan for the stakeholders.
So we're just taking a quick look at the stakeholders to prepare you for the rest of the slide. And what I want you to draw from this is that all these stakeholders actually influence how New Balance does business. Specifically, NGOs, customers, and employees are very important in this case. So taking a quick look at the strengths, you already know your company's strengths, but I would like to highlight your CSR commitment, your domestic manufacturing, and your grassroots marketing appeal. As far as weaknesses, the three I'd like to highlight are your CSR initiatives. You poorly communicate them. People are not aware of New Balance as a CSR company. Your CSR goals are not supported explicitly within the management structure. And finally, you have so far been unable to link CSR to your company's profitability. So, taking a quick look at the roots of competitive advantage, your resources, you do have a CSR steering committee in place, you have excellent brand equity, and a domestic assembly. As far as capabilities, you have an excellent lean production capabilities, which you have had to institute working in America. Also, you have a doing it right culture, which fits very nicely with your CSR. This leads you to a key strategic focus of corporate social responsibility and lean production, which in turn is a differentiation, which leads to a competitive advantage and superior profitability. Implication of this slide for your company is that given your already strong competitive positioning, New Balance should further emphasize their current achievements with stakeholders.
Okay. Following this analysis, we just want to reiterate and refocus on our key strategic issue. So how does New Balance manage corporate social responsibility to create a sustainable competitive advantage while benchmarking that is creating an example, a global example, of ethical global leadership? We have outlined 3 different alternatives for you to follow. You can decentralize, outsource, or institutionalize your corporate social responsibility process and initiatives. Elliot will go into details.
So, follow me on these 3 alternatives. First one, decentralize. What we mean by this is to decentralize CSR. Empower the employees to take initiatives on their own. On the positive side of things, New Balance already has a committed workforce that are involved in volunteering and whatnot. This is likely to increase motivation given that they choose their own path. It is little investment given that you decentralize and you empower your employees. However, there is a risk of having low participation rate given that it is not pushed from the top down. Bottom up can be risky, you can lose control, so we assess this one to be against management preferences, given that CSR is you've told us CSR is so central to your company. So this alternative is not optimal for the current situation. Outsource. What we mean by this is to outsource CSR to a consultancy party, or through rather simple donations to NGOs or foundations. That's a simple and easy way to be socially responsible. However, we don't assess this as true CSR. It would, however, allow the management to focus on the core business, that is the shoes. However, as I've mentioned, it is against the idea that CSR is central to your company. It is relatively weak in terms of brand building, against management preferences, so yet again, not optimal for the current situation. Third alternative, institutionalize. What we mean by this is to reorganize the CSR part of the business in order to maximize positive impact on the community, as well as the New Balance brand. Positive side of things, it's a strong statement of commitment to the community. It's true, responsible corporate citizenship. It's in line with corporate culture and the CEO's vision. However, it is management intensive, requires time, and it could divert focus from the core business. However, when we look at the decision matrix that we have here, the decision criteria that you see on the left has been drawn upon from the key success factors of the industry that we have outlined earlier. They are weighted differently, the most important ones being brand, that is reputation, communications, as well as management preferences. Decentralized, that would be likely to lead into poor communication of CSR against management preferences, so low score on this one. Outsourcing, against probably your brand image, against management preferences, very low score as well. When we look at the third one, however, you can see it is very strong in terms of communication, brand reputation, management preferences. Therefore, it is the most optimal solution to the problem. So our recommendation is that New Balance institutionalize corporate social responsibilities measured to consistently benchmark conscious business practices while securing a sustainable competitive advantage. So we'll move on to implementation.
So looking at the corporate citizenship management framework, We have identified 3 key areas which we would like to focus on during our implementation: the community, operations, products, and services. Now, it's extremely important to remember that this will all be centralized around your current mission, which is demonstrating responsible leadership. We build global brands that athletes are proud to wear, associates are proud to create, and communities are proud to host. Now, going right into the operations aspect of it, we are proposing to change your organizational structure to include corporate social responsibility within it. We believe that corporate social responsibility should have an outreach manager or a vice president of this CSR. This vice president will report to corporate and to the RL board of executives. Now, looking at the outreach manager, we have identified 5 key areas in which we feel that officer positions should be created: philanthropy and community investing, environmental sustainability, domestic manufacturing, product and life cycle, and SR compliance officer. Now, what's important to note here is that in the corporate functions, the CEO and senior management will continue on the status quo that they have been currently pursuing. However, it's important to note that the corporate values stem directly from the senior management, so there will have to be some transfer from the outreach manager to the senior management in order to ensure that these corporate values are being pushed down to all associates at all levels. Now, looking at the new positions created, the philanthropy officer will invest in the community and create positive PR. The way they will do this is host local events involving stakeholders. An example would be a charity lunch every 3rd Wednesday of the month, where employees come in and bring a dish that they would like to sell for lunch at their cafeteria or wherever the employees eat lunch. All those profits will go to a local charity that has been identified by senior management. Then the environmental sustainability officer will be responsible for focusing on green initiatives using renewable energy and recyclable materials within their products. This could include the addition of solar panels or wind energy to power their facilities. Now, when looking at the domestic manufacturer, their primary focus will be securing local jobs and local raw materials, as well as working with the NGOs to promote the fact that they are a local company and they have a local manufacturing focus. An example of one of their daily duties would be to source talent from the local institutions. Product and life cycle officer will find alternative uses after the life of the shoe is over. What this means is maybe investigating the possibility of integrating biodegradable materials into the shoe so that the life of the shoe continues on as the life of the shoe is over. And finally, the social responsibility compliance officer is responsible for 2 of the most important things in the business: ensuring human rights and labor standards are met. So a few things they could look into is researching labor unions, new facilities for employees such as gym, daycare facilities, etc. So the implication of this is that through the proposed initiatives and new positions, New Balance will be able to formalize and reorganize their organizational structure to incorporate CSR. Now, looking at maintaining the culture and the values of New Balance, which, as stated previously by Andrew, was one of the key objectives of the firm. Some things that we would like to propose is to host bi-weekly meetings with the RL committee and stakeholders within the community, instituting a possible 2-hour rule where 2 hours of an employee's work week are used to focus on working with local charities or local organizations to promote the New Balance brand. We would like to propose that you institute a Charity of the Year award where employees compete on a head-to-head basis to start up a new charity of their own in their community. And we would also like to propose that town hall meetings occur so that New Balance becomes a part of the community instead of being not part of the community. Now, looking at the implications, through the proposed initiatives, New Balance will be able to maintain their current culture and values. And we'll move to Stefan with products and services.
So we're just going to take a quick look at what some of the things that you can do to improve your social responsibility. And the first one we've identified is a materials inputs matrix to go along with your already EcoCard score. Now, what this would be is the inputs in your shoes would be classified following a green, yellow, and red scale. Green materials would be able to use freely, that are environmentally safe and biodegradable. Yellow materials would be ones that you would have to transition from or investigate the source of within 1 year to switch to green or further investigation. Now, red, this would be your PVC, the ones that are currently still used by your competitors and the ones that you have phased out. What these are is material that is not environmentally degradable or that it's hazardous to produce or to put back into the system. So as far as products are concerned, there's 3 things we'd like to touch upon as well. Is apparel. We feel that you cannot appropriately monitor your CSR by keeping your apparel outsourced. So we'd like to move the apparel business in-house for better business and CSR control. This is an area that's just to mitigate the potential risk of a problem happening, such as the plastic bottles. As far as scorecards are concerned, we would like to implement the eco scorecard as well as the material scorecard everywhere, and not just for your outdoor shoe position. And finally, green investments. This is part of the services and includes your buildings. Green roofs, efficient machines, buildings that are constructed to a minimum silver LEED standard. Now what this does is give you an excellent return on investment in the long term, and also shows that you're committed to enhancing the community. So the implications of this is through product improvements, we will become the industry leader in CSR by sourcing only the best and most sustainable options. As far as implementation is concerned, Andrew will take you into that.
We want to focus on developing community outreach. That is, you have been developing your CSR programs and processes. However, you've not been communicating them as much as you could be to take advantage of the achievements you have so far. So first of all, some community participation, on a physical level, is an athlete volunteer program, working with children or working with other individuals that may need some role models, or establishing runners club or other athletics clubs where you'll have regular meetings where you can organize to help promote athletic lifestyles and offer discounts on your New Balance products. E-participation. This is something that is relatively new, but the outreach or the range of it is quite massive. So we're going to focus on social networking. By implementing such programs that focus on Twitter, Facebook, forums, that is online community, or online feedback through an interactive website, we can reach more people at a very low cost, and it follows a lot of the communicative trends that we should be following for disseminating our strategic operations. So just some example of this. On the internet, we can have the e-participation, as I mentioned, emphasize the American campaign, and Stephanie will talk to us about the Cradle to Credit.
Okay, just going back on the Emphasize American campaign, this is not something we've touched upon in your company yet, and we feel as though you should really be pushing this hard in your markets. Emphasize American campaign, what we picture is a series of print and TV ads where you will put the highlight on some of your employees, the charitable work they do, what sports they enjoy, and just showing the American public that you are an American company that does produce in America. You're the only manufacturer of shoes that does this, and this is an integral part of your CSR. As far as Cradle to Cradle is concerned, this is a new phase of design where people not only consider the product life, but the end of the product life, where you go from the design all the way to the recycling. Now what we envision for this is potentially a recycle program where New Balance gives you 15% off your purchase of a new pair of shoes if you return your old shoes. Also, we'd like to highlight in this campaign that 100% of your shoes are made from recycled material, at least in part. And finally, and most importantly for this, is the CSR transparency document. This would be sort of an annual report that documents the successes achieved, the milestones that you have failed to obtain, and your future goals. This would go a long way to bringing transparency to your private company.
I'm sure everyone in the crowd is wondering, how much is this going to cost us to implement? Well, when looking at the costs, reorganizing a structure such as the one proposed will approximately cost $300,000 due to the new positions and the raise that we would have to give the VP of CSR. The new charity award, as I previously mentioned in the implementation, will be approximately $1 million. Hosting community events, construction of website, transparency document, and the recycled shoe program for discounts and subsidies on the shoes that you return, as well as television advertising. So in total, we are looking at costs of about $9.1 million. However, when we look at the tangible benefits, we can see that from try-ons and sales, we would receive $9.2 million in the first year. Now that is only a 1% growth in sales, which is, we believe, to be pretty conservative. And we believe that through the implementation, we can realize cost savings of approximately $2 million. We also receive intangible benefits, brand equity, ethical consumers, and it achieves all of the objectives previously mentioned. Now the implication is that with this implementation, it will represent a 23% return on investment. We will now move to Stefan with risk and mitigation factors.
So taking a look at risks, these are some factors that could potentially hamper this program. One is that the initial strategy is limited to the U.S. market. However, we hope to use your position in the U.S. to benchmark for all your global operations. Two, the lack of celebrity factor. You are known for this, and this actually goes with your no endorsement, your no athlete campaign. This could also be seen as a CSR washing, like greenwashing, since you are only in the U.S. And finally, the competitors that are in your neighborhood could address this and imitate. So we're going to move on to mitigation factors. Potentially the internet. This is a good way to mitigate the factors that the initial strategy is limited to the U.S. This makes it global. And the other one that I would like to highlight for first mover advantage is you establish the industry standard and you're always associated with this.
Okay, so as you can see here, we've addressed our CSR objectives through focusing on operations, products, and the community through various different aspects or different steps in the presentation and during our implementation. In conclusion, while developing a differentiating value offering through an environmentally yet competitively sustainable advantage, New Balance is set towards a socially conscious market leadership, and we believe this is the right path to take. Thank you very much. Any questions, please?
Thank you. We will now have 10 minutes so the judges can ask questions. I will call on the 5 and 1 minute left. If the judges are ready, we can start the questioning now.
Yeah, can I just ask you, what's the core activity of the company? What's the core activity? If someone said, what's the core activity of the company?
I would say that the core activity would actually be designing shoes.
Okay. So you said about the apparel area, which is only a small part of the market, but the most difficult one. Why bring it in-house? Why not? Why just do away with apparel? That's a big issue, a big problem. Why bring it in-house? Because that is going against the trend of our company.
As you build your brand, we foresee that apparel will gradually increase as a percentage of your revenue sales. And these are higher margin products. And so by bringing it in, you avoid any potential problems that you might have with child labor or ink that's put on the shirts that's poisonous. So by bringing it in-house, you do regain control over your apparel, which is a growing part.
So you didn't think about sort of just jettison it? You didn't think about that?
We absolutely thought about divesting it. It was
Yeah.
definitely, it's one of our contingency plans is to divest the apparel. If it doesn't work out, that we can leverage the CSR factor. What we mean by that is if we are able to keep the apparel in-house, we can focus on leveraging that as a component of CSR. So we can use organic materials or ethical practices to produce these shirts or apparel.
Just one, you mentioned overseas. One of the big issues in overseas is the problem of child labour, those kind of issues. I know you said it on the USA, but you didn't really mention that in your presentation. We did mention it, basically. Why not?
Well, we believe as of right now, the important thing is to establish the CSR at home first and really strengthen that, and then use this model to expand it internationally as well. So we just want to get some practices and some norms in place at home first and then expand it internationally.
In addition, you are already doing an excellent job with your CSR in comparison to the publicly traded companies.
Furthermore, the internet will be a gateway for us as it moves abroad. It is a completely global solution for us.
Okay. And your approach is to institutionalise, which is organisational issues. You mentioned about senior management and you talked about the structure. Now that isn't, I'm interested in terms of how you're going to get the managers on board. You've got the structure there, but how are you going to get the managers on board? You didn't really mention that. How will you get the managers? That's the point I'm interested in.
Well, we believe that would be the easiest part of the implementation. Because of the culture that you've already instituted from your owners all the way down to your base level, you have been doing it right. So once the managers are given the framework within which to work, this program should really take off.
Patrick?
You touched upon the need to create transparency, right? Can you give me some more insight in conditions in order to create transparency, more transparency?
We were actually thinking of going one step further. We're actually hoping to get participation where we can get the public involved, see how our operations work, and not only that, but help make decisions through our online forums. Of course, they won't be major strategic decisions, but it will get them involved. So not only do we want transparency, and for example, in any strategic decision we have, we want participation with the public as well.
How about internally? Inside the company?
Well, the same document that we'll be producing for the public will also be available for the employees to look at, and this will be discussed in such things as the town hall meetings with the CEO, and this will always be released internally. So that would be a great idea for the employees to check that out.
How will you integrate the CSR principles in the whole supply management process? Because I guess if design is the main activity, they must outsource a lot of the production to suppliers in Far East, for example. How do you manage the suppliers and the whole CSR process?
The company itself can easily find other companies that are making efforts towards this direction and partner with them. You have done this in the past, so this is totally feasible in terms of suppliers, as you mentioned.
But these suppliers are independent companies. How can we guide them through this process?
Well, you're actually the #4 producer of shoes in the industry, so your business does represent large volume for these customers, so for these suppliers. So working with them, you let them know how important it is for you to have this CSR and that they will lose their business if you don't do this. And by also partnering with NGOs, which you have in the past, you can continue to monitor them on a yearly basis or a quarterly basis.
You're up against huge competitors. Do you feel that this is really a stable advantage?
It does differentiate you as a player, definitely. And you have a lot of good qualities we have mentioned in the analysis, such as 100% of your shoes contain recycled materials. You're the only one to do this, however, you do not communicate. This is something we can easily leverage in terms of branding and marketing. To set yourself apart from Nike, Adidas, and I could take you actually to the competitive landscape. So we have the 3 largest companies in terms of footwear. They are a lot bigger than you are when you look in terms of revenues. You're only $1.5 billion. However, like I've mentioned, 100% of the products have recycled content. The other companies do not. It's either not reported, unknown, or it's 79% for Timberland. This is definitely something you can leverage.
In addition, now is the perfect time to be pushing the American production, given the economic decline and the protectionist sentiment in North America. So your brand will really benefit from this if you're able to communicate properly what you are already doing.
And on our community level, none of our competitors right now have any participation process put in place. So we're hoping that going one step further beyond transparency is something that will differentiate us on a level that is hard to duplicate, especially given their size and the size of their decision-making process.
Yeah. You are mentioning you want to be the industry leader, #1 in the shoe industry. You're covering many aspects within CSR. Shouldn't we try to focus on something?
We mean industry leader as socially responsible business.
Yes.
So that is why I focus on CSR.
Yes, but within CSR, you can be socially responsible, environmental responsible. You seem to would like to cover everything. Are we able to handle that?
Absolutely. For the majority of what is already going on, you do target all this. You have community programs, you donate to charity, you are encouraging volunteering, you currently source recycled material, you are covering all bases. And one of the, besides upgrading this and institutionalizing it to make it more known amongst your employees and the outside world, you just have to really let people know about it, and that's...
Okay, but then I think about your financial figures there. Can they cover that? Is that a budget which covers that you will be the industry leader in all aspects of CSR?
Well, to touch on my section on community, for example, setting up the website and organizing any charitable events, these are things that are very low cost. The website will be something around $500,000, or about $250,000 they will then. And the volunteer activities are little to no cost at all due to the employee participation in that as well.
But where are the yearly costings of the institution that you're going to create?
Sorry, could you repeat that, the institution?
You want to have a department, you want to put people responsible in several aspects of the CSR. Where are the costs for those people?
They're in the reorganization of the structure. We believe that we can create 5 positions at approximately $50,000 apiece yearly salary. And our idea was to hire Catherine as the VP of Corporate Social Responsibility.
Okay. Traveling expenses, education expenses?
We did not, no.
Arguably, the greatest potential risk factor is overseas. I mean, if, you know, that's where it's most likely to occur, whatever the big issue might be. Yet your strategy is essentially domestic market first. Is that a risky strategy, retrospectively, given that the greatest risk is overseas?
Well, given that the majority of the competitors are overseas, we believe that they will be facing all the risks that we currently do, and that we personally do a better job at CSR already, and that the implementations, the ideas we put in here are only to further what you already have going on.
Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. 20 minutes to do presentation, followed by 10 minutes for Q&A with the judges. But before we start, I will ask the judges to quickly present themselves.
Peter Rasmussen here from IBA, amongst others lecturing in marketing, strategy, supply chain.
David Gillingham, President of NIBS and Professor of Marketing.
Søren Holmsen, Associate Professor of International Marketing at the University of Southern Denmark.
Patrick Schoenmakers, International Affairs, I forgot to mention before, also Strategic Management at Zuid University.
Peter Peterson, I'm the head of the course department at IBC.
Colin, I'm up in London Southern University, and especially cross-cultural management of issues and comparison of systems and practices.
You have 20 minutes to do your presentation. I'll call out when there's 10, 5, 3, and 1 minute left. So if you're ready, please begin.
Good evening, Board of Directors of New Balance. We are Reckitt's consultants, and we are very pleased to be here with you today. In our presentation of our recommendation for your company, we'll be going through the introduction with myself, and then afterwards I'll take you through analysis and hand you off to Ashlyn. And then James will be going through alternatives with you and providing you our recommendation, followed by Kate with the implementation, and back to Ashlyn for our conclusion. Our problem statement that we've identified for your company has been that New Balance must implement a strategy to formally manage CSR that will be compatible with its corporate culture, already a very strong giving culture. Some of the key issues that we've identified have been that currently you're already an industry-leading philanthropist, there are increasing government regulations in the industry, increasing public awareness, you're a global company, and you have a very complicated supply chain, many suppliers. Some of the objectives that we've used have been to implement a new CSR policy, to increase public awareness of New Balance's socially responsible practices, to inspire an engaged and committed workforce, to transform New Balance into a top-tier global brand, to build an emotional bond with athletic consumers, and to continuously improve in everything that you do. And as an executive summary, our recommendation is that you create a VP of CSR position and implement a formal public CSR strategy. And the total cost we've estimated is $5.1 million, with the results of having a formal CSR corporate structure, a reduced carbon footprint, and a vastly improved brand image. In our analysis, we'll be going through a company analysis. That will be myself, and Ashley will step in to go through the industry analysis, the stakeholder analysis, and the competitive analysis. For our company analysis, we've done a PESTEL analysis. We're going through political, economic, social, technological, environmental, and legal factors that affect your company. First, the political factors. We've identified that there's increasing pressure to regulate companies in many facets of their operations, and that in many cases, New Balance is not actually obligated to disclose information as it's a privately owned company. Some of the economic factors have been that an economic recession is obviously causing a decline in sales, and that an increased appreciation for non-monetary social and environmental costs has been taking place. Some of the social factors that are relevant to your company, a strong history of philanthropy, the use of domestic U.S. manufacturing in a time when very few of your competitors do so, and an increased public awareness of CSR amongst the general population. Some technological factors have been that you're an industry leader in environmental efficiency, and that you've achieved significant cost savings resulting from the use of advanced technologies. And environmental factors, you've significantly reduced waste, you have used recycled materials in your products, and you have industry-leading techniques to reduce environmental impacts through the way you do business. And some of the legal factors include REACH in the European Union and mandatory GHG reporting that is being rolled out in your headquarters of Massachusetts. All right, and the direction will now go through the industry analysis.
Thank you, Matt. We've identified your level of competition as medium. Mainly, we've broken up into 4 quadrants. Firepower is medium, as you have many distributors. Threat of substitutes is high, as there is many sports shoes brands, and although you're ranked 4th in market share, it only represents 7%. Supplier power is medium, as there are many suppliers, and threat of entrance is medium. It is capital intensive. However, we have identified that some apparel companies may enter shoes quite easily. As I just mentioned, your market share is nearly 8% at 7.6%, with Nike being the market leader at 47%. You're ranked 4th, however, as I said, is not a large market share as the market is very stratified. New Balance worldwide sales, right in 1991, was at $200 million, and in the current year is at $1.6 billion. However, as you can see, with the information given, there is more years placed here than here. So as I broke it down by year. From 1991 to 1999, you grew on average of 35.8%. Extremely great growth rate. Slowing down from 1999 to 2005 to 12.1%. And as Matt mentioned, in the last couple of years of the economic recession, only experiencing a 1.5% growth rate between 2005 and 2008. A core competency that you guys have identified is that your use of domestic providers. In the industry overall, only 12% is domestic and 88% overseas. You, however, have created a stronghold with 25% of your revenues coming from manufacturers in the domestic market, something your customers undoubtedly appreciate. The value of CSR. Why put money into this? Why make this your company's focus? From the Rice University brand study, they've identified that CSR was the second most important driver of reputation at 16.3%, following the quality of products and services at 17.6%. You're strong in both of these areas. As a person who's more aware of New Balance and has a good feeling about the brand and likes the brand's personality, the more willing he or she is to purchase a New Balance running shoes. However, although CSR is in theory intangible, it has really strong tangible results. Stakeholder analysis identified is you want people to be proud to wear your product, proud to create it, and proud to host it. Proud to wear your product is obviously your customers, which as we identified is the athletic consumers as well as all casual footwear users. You have a line of male shoes, a line of women's shoes, etc. Proud to create. Management's proud to create your product, workers, as well as a network of retired employees. Proud to host. NGOs, which Kate will go through in implementation, the media, and the government. Your communities are getting behind you because you're doing great things for them. Competitively, some of your competitors, as we mentioned in the market share analysis, is ASICS, Skechers, Nike being the number 1, Adidas, VF, as well as a host of other producers. Interestingly enough, Crocs is also in the market share at 2%. Company snapshot, external analysis, and opportunities identified for you are the federal climate change regulations, a growing demand for socially responsible business practice, and NGO partnerships. Some threats are increasing transparency demands, and although you are not a public company, your customers would still like to know what's going on. A cultural perception of the overseas production issues. This is a big buzzword, especially in the shoe industry, with Nike and other producers catching some backlash in the past over using less developed countries and some questionable business practices. Also, the rising cost of domestic labor. CSR risk analysis. Here's your management decision measurement. We've identified some competencies you either have or are looking to have. The supply chain, HR, and labor.
is your exit strategies and your maximum hours controls in your overseas operations. GHG emissions and regulations, you've had mandatory reporting and the VALC reduction, health, safety, product and stewardship, REACH, life cycles, and you've also identified workers' health as a key concern. Increased demand for transparency, you want to create an emotional bond, build the trust, and get the information out there about your company. I'll now pass you off to James, who will go through some of your alternatives.
Based on the analysis provided by Matt and Ashlyn, we provide you with 3 alternatives. First alternative, CSR focus on becoming a strong public champion. Secondly, a focus on building CSR internally with development of the Responsible Leadership Committee. And lastly, to create a VP of CSR position and implement a formal public CSR strategy. Obviously, there are pros and cons of these alternatives. Some of the pros of the first alternative would be it would safeguard and maintain the brand reputation as a public champion. There would also be increased customer loyalty as they'd be aware of your CSR, what you're doing in the community. Some of the cons of this alternative, obviously there would be a significant cost in doing so and getting your brand out there and emphasizing what you're doing. There'd also be some global concerns that maybe it's focusing too much on the American side of things, not focusing on international outlets as well. And lastly, does not take into account aligning your core business processes with your CSR philosophy. The second alternative, obviously the pros of going with this internal alternative would be it aligns with the humble nature of the owners. There would also be less public scrutiny under this alternative. Some of the cons of this alternative would not solve your problem of not having a CSR department. There would still be a lack of public awareness and transparency, and it would not take into account the integration of the core business models. Lastly, some of the pros of the final alternative would be it would improve transparency. It would also align your CSR initiatives. There would be a clear leadership, provide maximum social benefits. It would also leverage environmental and social factors, as well as improve community involvement. Obviously, with this alternative, there are cons. Firstly, the cost of training, human resources, as well, you will be under public scrutiny under this alternative. To provide you with a recommendation, we've created a decision matrix, and as you can see, based on the decision matrix, we recommend to you alternative number 3, which is to create a VP of Corporate Social Responsibility and make this a more formal public strategy. I'll now pass you on to Kate, who will guide you through the implementation.
Thank you, James. Now's where we get to the fun part. So, initial implementation. What we're going to do here is we're going to hire a VP of CSR. Along with that, we also need to hire a Director of Domestic and Overseas CSR, as well as a VP of Communications. We want to create a minimum standards for the apparel suppliers and align current mission statement with accountability and transparency. So here's your current organizational structure, and this is what it will be like if you implement what we recommend. So our implementation, this is what I'm going to take you through today. Our overall strategy is going to be made up of our core business, community and philanthropy, communication, both internal and external. So we'll start with the core business. What we want to do, we want to get the CSR, your message out there. So, look at the R&D research. Maybe create a vegan shoe for your customers. So something that's kind of more forward thinking. Return your shoes. So this would be a promotion where we could also measure product life. So you get your customers who buy the New Balance shoe, they bring the shoe back to the store where they bought it, and they get a $10 reimbursement towards their next pair of shoes. So here you're also being able to measure your product life cycle, as well as creating customer loyalty. Eliminate plastic bags. So all recycled usage from 25% to 35% by 2010. So I'll show you how we're going to eliminate plastic bags. So here is my beautiful drawing of the shoe box, and the current plastic bags. So currently right now what happens when the customer goes in to buy the shoe? It goes into the box, and then into the bag. So we're going to think inside the box and outside of the bag. What we want to do now, here's your box, here's your shoe, goes into the box, and by adding a string to this, it will eliminate over 42 million plastic bags per year. So community and philanthropy. What we're going to do here, we want to partner with an international NGO. Oh, sorry, I clicked it there. Right to Play. So this organization, I'm not sure if you are familiar with this, but this is an organization that supports the involvement of children, youth, and young adults in the right to play sports and trying to get them involved. So this takes place in a lot of underdeveloped countries, as well as within within the United States and Canada as well. We also want to go storefront green. So have a little green set up there to kind of support your environmental aspect, as well as having chilled and filtered H2O water, is what we like to call it. That's going to kind of promote, that will promote, recycling and the environment as well. The Impact Day. What we want to do there, we want to involve our employees by giving up 1 day a year to get all the employees to volunteer throughout all over the world. So we're going to give all the employees a day off, a paid day off to help their community. So this will be a massive media campaign with regards to marketing, as well as a lot of the goodwill stuff a lot of the goodwill messages that you'll get in the newspapers, things like that. Communication. Internally, we're obviously going to have to make a CSR report. That was one of the main things that we've identified for you. Make this available online, so instead of printing 20,000 copies, take the environmental approach and be able to access it online. Annual ethical audit. We thought that this would be, going a step above and beyond, not just the CSR report. Formalize, internalize the communication. So we want to be able to know, we don't want to wait 6 weeks to see what's going on. We want it to be immediate. Develop intranet for employees. So this ties in with the lines of communication. And obviously we're going to need a training day to inform the employees of the new mission and structure. Communication externally. We're going to need to revamp the website. I'll show you a beautiful mock-up of that in just 1 second. Establish an online presence. We're going to need to do a marketing campaign for the Return Your Shoes, the Green Store Initiative, the Right to Play campaign, and we also want you guys to get involved at Facebook and Twitter. So this will be able to give updates to your customers, involving them in your brand. So making them a part of it, not just them buying your shoes, but them actually becoming a part of this corporate social responsibility. So this is a beautiful website that we've created for you. So this is what customers would be able to access. CSR annual report, they could access that online. They could have pictures. We could put pictures up of Impact Day, the results from Impact Day, what we're doing there. Reducing our carbon footprint. We can have an ongoing measurement of how much we're reducing, what environmental impacts our company or your company is having, making a difference. Following us on Twitter. So that would require your customers signing up and you becoming involved in Twitter. Right to Play, just having pictures there so that customers can see this. So Ashley's going to take you quickly through the implementation, just to give you a broad overview, because I know that was a lot of stuff to sort of digest.
Thank you, Kate. As Kate said, this is a visual representation of the ideas we've had for your company. First and foremost, as Kate said, initially is get the new CSR positions, which, as we said, was VP Communications. There's a lot of information to get out. VP of CSR, as well as a director underneath the VP of CSR in both the domestic and international markets. Next, were the CRS strategy and annual report, core business initiatives. It's really easy to just throw money at the problems in society. You as a company want to focus on helping not only in the community and philanthropically, but by your core business initiatives. And as Kate outlined, that's the Thinking Inside the Box campaign, as well as upping the recycled paper usage. So day to day, as you're making money, you're helping your community. Next is the community initiatives, going outside your company and outside the core business initiatives, and the communication strategy. Communication is a very important thing for your company, not only externally and promoting all the great things you're doing and improving your brand equity, but also internally. So there's an organized structure of hierarchy, which is where the new positions will come into play. A visual of your carbon footprint. This is a very important thing, not only for your company, but in the media today. So first off, in the box initiatives, and increase recycled usage, decrease carbon footprint. Product lifespan, returning the shoe, decrease carbon footprint. Next is the vegan shoe, which will have no leather and which will appeal to those customers that are very much in the mindset of a niche market, and this also is just a great offering for your company. So here's the CSR 2010 deliverables. We want your report to not only increase the transparency of your company, but also have solid, tangible, measurable items. Bring recycled paper usage from 25% in 2009 to 35% in 2010. This is very easily attained by having 100% recycled letterhead, envelopes, etc. 95% participation in Impact Day. These are organized initiatives. Your employees aren't going to have to find something for themselves to volunteer in. You're going to set up something with the community. Say, for example, locally, go to an elderly person's home, revamp the outside gardens as a team. You'll all have your New Balance outfits on, very public out there. Also, decrease the carbon footprint, so measure that and set a new goal for 2010. Here's a budget of how this is going to break down cost-wise. Annual CSR report, $150,000. Annual ethical audit. This is extremely important, especially for the overseas market. There's things that are changing over there, new regulations. You need to be aware and make sure you're not doing anything that could harm your brand. Impact Day is $1 million. The $1 million includes not only the pay for that day, but also the physical tools needed to outreach in your community. R&D vegan shoe, $500K. The Right to Play partnership, up to $1 million based on sales. Green storefront design of $800K. Carbon footprint initiative. This could actually be a potential cost savings. Your company's no longer going to have to pay for the bags for their products, and we'll just add the string. New positions created, a VP CSR, VP Communication, and the directors. This is a $500K in the first year. And employee training, so everyone's on board and you have a motivated, attached workforce to this new plan, $400K. Brings your total to $5.1 million. We think this plan will really help sell your company. You're already doing great things. People just need to know about it now. Thank you, and we open the floor to questions.
Thank you. We'll now have 10 minutes to questioning. I'll call out when there's 5 and 1 minute left. If the judges are ready, we'll start questioning.
Okay, I've got a few questions. In your problem statement, it's quite a reasonable one, but you've got in your objectives, transform New Balance into a top-tier global brand. That's incredibly ambitious, and do you think your proposal would actually do that?
That's actually your goal.
So I know, I'm just saying, as we're an organisation, do you think that is what you are proposing? That objective is incredibly ambitious based on what you put here. And do you think it's too ambitious that just by developing and managing the CSR, if we did that, that we will develop that, we will actually achieve that objective?
Well, as you can see, we show the percentages of how important CSR is to your customers. So we hope that by increasing your brand image and improving the overall morale, that your customers will be very motivated by this. People want to buy from places that are socially responsible. And we feel like you're already a market leader with ranking 4th, and you have a lot of room for penetration in the markets you're in.
How do you know that? How do you know that people want to buy? Maybe some people, but how do you know that people want to buy?
Well,
you've only got a small share of the market. How do you know that?
It was ranked the second most important factor for when people buy a product. First, they look at quality, which you undoubtedly already have, and second, they want to look at what kind of company they're supporting. A, you support domestically, which is strong for the U.S., especially in times of recession. And secondly, you are a company that has great philanthropic motives. So we feel as if having that as a second factor and playing off your core competencies of cost control and quality, you will be able to attain a global presence.
Okay.
And based on, based on the customer survey that was conducted right now, you guys are doing an insane amount of corporate stuff. Like you're acting very corporate or socially responsible, and nobody knows about it. So there's zero amongst your competitors. There's zero awareness of the CSR. So with the slowing growth, I mean, you already have 7% of the market share. So we feel that this will be the next thing to really boost it. So your growth is kind of sagging off, and by upping the CSR and upping the awareness, we feel this will really rejuvenate your brand.
As Ashlyn showed too, there was the level of growth had slowed down, but a 1% increase in revenues, which is a fairly conservative estimate based on all the initiatives we are doing, would result in an annual increase in revenues of $16 million as well. Just something to take into account there as well.
Okay, just 2 small questions then. With domestic, you talk about domestic versus overseas. You use the phrase that it's undoubtedly appreciated by your customers. The fact that I think it's 25% of your that's in America. How do you know that? How do you know it is appreciated?
In times of recession, People are very concerned with keeping jobs at home, support locally, so you can grow locally. And we feel that if you are promoted as a made in U.S. product for the majority of your products, people will appreciate that. And actually your manager of customer responsibility initially took the job with this company because her father appreciated so much the fact that your company focused domestically.
That's one person. But and the other thing I just want to mention about create minimum standards of apparel for suppliers when you talk about the implementation. There are issues related to that. And you know, have you thought of the consequences of that and what kind of time or what kind of time scale? You said create minimum standards for apparel suppliers, but you didn't sort of give any idea about the time scale and how that would affect us. You just can't give minimum standards to people and say you've got to do it. You've got to give them time and explain.
Right. We felt that the amount of time frame, and depending on the suppliers' competencies themselves, and we felt that more than anything, by immediately, as soon as possible, creating the actual standards and then providing it to suppliers, immediately those that weren't able to meet those standards would start to fall away, and eventually we felt that you would be left with a core of proven suppliers that would be able to provide you with the sort of products that really match your company's image and real emphasis on corporate social responsibility. So things like having unsafe water bottles potentially and things like that. Those would drop by the wayside if you had more stringent set of standards.
How would you measure the CSR effects of all the positive things that you're claiming would actually happen? How would you measure that?
Essentially, we put in our budget, we want to have ethical audits performed for your company on an annual basis. So that would be the main guideline to decide if you are fulfilling all your objectives there, would be the ethical audit. So.
Also, you as a company use return on invested capital, and you measure it in a very unique way with how many tries of shoes people have as well as how many sales. And if you have a budget for, say, an event you have at Greek's front store, this is how much money we put in, this is how many shoes we took out. So it's $30 goes towards your ROIC for every pair of shoes sold, and $3 towards your ROIC for every pair of shoes tried on. So you have a very unique and successful patent for measuring your success of your social responsibility initiatives.
Also with one of the new initiatives, the return your shoes, you'd also be able to measure that. So how many shoes returned each year, that's a solid measurable. That's not impressions, that's...
But which stakeholders would you interview in order to measure this? And what kind of questions would you ask?
In order to measure our overall brand image?
CSR effect.
CSR is very quantifiable. CSR is quantifiable in the methods that Kate said, and otherwise the stakeholders we've identified are your consumers, your employees, and the communities. So we'd like to target people, obviously our employees. Are they happy? Are they on board with your brand? Customers, if they're bringing back their shoe and they're returning it, it's quantifiable. They're on board with our plan. They have brand loyalty with your company. And the communities, positive media, you can measure that. You can measure the amount of hits you have on a Google site, things like of that nature.
Yes, the object, the goal for us is that to be a society shaper, industrial leader, just me too on the CSR.
Pardon me?
What is our object, the goal for this? What do we want to be? Our image on the CSR.
We felt when we were working with the company it was really unique. We were looking at you and you were already doing all of these things for CSR, and it was refreshing that a company was not doing this for the invested return, it was doing it because management and owners really believed in the actual...
I understand that, but do we want to be the shaper of this industry, for example? Do we want to be number one in CSR?
You want to be a global leader, as we've identified, and not only CSR through, as I said, throwing money at problems. You want to be developing CSR through your core business processes. So how you run your business also helps the community. Every sale you make has a minimal impact on the community, as well as your larger overall community.
The suggestions you're giving, does that bring me there? Because when I look at the exhibit here, we are doing more or less the same as the others in the business.
One thing that you're doing differently in the business is the polycarbonate. You have 0%, where other ones have a small minimal amount, which is a strong competency of your company. Also, something that New Balance is doing that other companies aren't is you're developing new products. You'll be going with a vegan shoe, which will be the first one in that line, and be able to differentiate yourselves. Also, you're already a leader in this area. Nobody knows about it yet. So if you communicate your strategy and your proven success in this business, we feel as if it'd be a way to differentiate yourselves in corporate social responsibility.
How would you test the strategy? Would you do some marketing research?
Before, afterwards?
For the CSR strategy?
Yes. Oh.
As we said, your company already has positions in place of how to measure your ROIC. You can use that as a quantifiable scale of it. And we also have, this is a measurable problem. Some of the things we identified are quantifiable. You can count the number of shoes you have in place. You can test your customers to see, are they aware of what you're doing? Because as of right now, you ranked last in public awareness. So you can do another survey, roll it out in 16 months' time, and see if your awareness has increased. Add another implementation, another survey, has your awareness increased? What's getting noticed, what isn't? Also, Twitter followers are directly countable. Do you have 100,000 people following you this week? Do you have 200,000 people following you next week? So we identified some key deliverables in your CSR report that are very quantifiable.
Patrick?
Apart from restructuring, what's going to be the role of leadership versus the existing culture?
Apart from making the new positions?
Yes.
We want to have it top-down. So already the management structure is you are supporting these initiatives, but sometimes it just doesn't flow through to the bottom workers. So you want to have a top-down approach that if the top people of the company are on board with CSR, it'll flow down to getting a passionate, motivated workforce.
That went hand in hand with the fact that it was...
Sorry, your time is up. Thank you very much.
It's not all good. Yeah.
What about the taboo of asking the question to someone who was supposed to know it but don't know it? I think that's part of the barrier as well.
Can you give me an example?
Like the school kid asking the teacher something that's maybe 1 or 2 levels above the teacher's knowledge.
So it's the smart kid.
The smart kids,
right?
They get hammered back in the face when they ask questions that they expect the teachers to know because it's the teacher's field.
Yeah. Or they're just wondering about it, like they're just interested.
They're just curious,
yeah.
and the teacher can't tell them.
Well,